Welcome to Point 16, a microfarm. Today we're getting into replanting a whole bunch of things, namely tomatoes and potatoes. It's not because they rhyme, it's because they need new homes. First up, tomato time with a potting soil that requires a load of water, which, as you know, we've been collecting it, but I don't want to spare too much of that just to make this soil, so I'm only using a small bag of it to give it a try. I use soda cans to take up space in the bottom of some of these and to help aerate the bottoms of the containers when the dirt's soaked. It helps the roots a little bit. So filling up the first container ever so slightly to cover the cans with this inflating soil, just add water, I found out it takes a lot more water than I thought, but the process is pretty neat and it starts to rise like, brownie batter maybe? I definitely wouldn't recommend using one of these bags for large pots like this. These are 3-gallon nursery pots, and it would take probably the entire bag to fill maybe 1.5 of these. So I used a few different soil compositions and mixed them together to get different varieties of soil to see what would work best for the tomatoes and to make sure everybody had, I guess, a fair shot. I started these tomatoes from seeds in peat pots, so I pulled them apart rather than planting them because I have to get to the root bundles of each individual plant. And the cool thing about the peat pots, of course, whatever pieces you pull off the plants you're growing, you can compost. Pulling apart the tomato starts was kind of interesting. Pulling them apart in 4 different directions because there were 4 plants there, slowly and carefully got them apart to where they'd be okay. We didn't want to press them in too hard. This one I have 2 stems on because they came together. And compost the peat pot. Mix up a bit more soil, give a home to another tomato plant, pat it down gently, do it to the 3rd one with even more types of soil, a little more of that expanding brownie batter plant magic mix, and give another tomato a nice comfy home. And the 4th one, another combination of soils, a comfortable place for the tomatoes. The tomatoes have now all been replanted and will spend their lives in the little greenhouse, since that's where tomatoes tend to do well, and I don't want anyone small and furry to nibble on them. Not the dog, but the other animals that are outside. This is also the first glimpse at the veggie garden we're putting out on the lawn. Next up is potato time, for which I have several grow bags of black fabric. And, all filled with dirt later, not as much as you would think when growing potatoes, because they have to have their roots and subsequently some of the plant covered in order to keep making and producing potatoes. Some of these guys have a lot of greens going on, but I still wanted to give it a try and maybe get some fingerling potatoes out of them, so I gave each of the potato plants a separate home in a much better type of environment that contains the roots and allows them to grow and then access the potatoes for harvest in a really easy way by pulling open its little potato flap. They're not filled to the top because I have to leave enough room to put soil on them, and I actually ended up taking out some of the soil that I'd put in to cover over more of the top of the green foliage to force the plant to make more potatoes. I also have a bunch of potatoes that have been sitting in a paper bag waiting to go into the ground or into another grow bag in case these don't produce. Giving them some fresh water, not soaked, but thoroughly moist all the way through to keep them happy through the transplant process. For now, the potatoes are in their happy, new, permanent homes. At this point, the greenhouse still had leafy greens, cabbage, broccoli, the zucchinis, peas, different things in there that needed to go into the final garden beds. Everything was still young and growing in there, but after the replanting, we finally put the fence around the whole place because we have so many deer, and have put in the entirety of every plant into their new homes. This is just before the shade tunnel for the leafy greens went in. The zucchinis are a lot happier. They're also such mega producers in the zone where we live. We've already harvested a zucchini by the time this is uploaded. entirety of the greenery of our little micro farm is all in its permanent home. Thank you for watching. I hope you like, share, and subscribe, and come back for more.